Wow, you're in for a treat today. You're going to learn what to do if you're constantly covering for others and redoing their work. A specific technique to deploy when you've failed to make sure you don't go into a self-doubt spiral. The catalyst to move from a technical doer to a people leader. 2 super fast ways to identify your blind spots. How to influence your manager's leadership style. How to stay connected with your team even when you don't work in the same location. How to renegotiate your way out of overwhelm. How to reframe difficulties in your life to actually being the secret to your success. And how to motivate people in nonprofits and other purpose-driven companies. We have a lot to go through, so buckle up and let's go.
Welcome to Leadership Mindset 2.0. Practical neuroscience and psychology to transform you from a tactical doer into a strategic leader. Here is your host, former social entrepreneur of the year and coach to some of the world's top executives, R. Michael Anderson.
Hello leaders, Michael here, and welcome to this Friday edition of Questions and Answers. Just to explain to everybody what's going on here is that right now I'm doing a live Q&A in the Facebook group for the Growth Leaders Collective. And we're also recording this for a podcast. Now, if you are in the GLC, then you do get to send in your questions and you do get to attend these live videos and you get to watch them later. So that's one of the benefits of being in the GLC. The reason I love doing these is I really like to do practical things. There's so much out there about leadership, and a lot of it's, to be honest, academic. It's not practical. It's theoretical. And if you've ever read anything by me, worked with me, etc., first of all, I go fast and it's practical. And that's why I like having real life questions that people send in because they're actual situations. And the great thing is, if you are a leader and you send in a question, chances are somebody else has a similar type of question out there. You don't just get the answer for you, other people learn from it as well. Let's dive in. First question, how often should you audit your team members? I know you gave a few examples in the podcast. However, do you have a more extensive list of questions available for those of us who are newer to this? So to step back a bit here, what an audit is, and I handled this in an earlier podcast, you as a leader need to audit your team. One of my bosses says you must inspect what you expect, and that really encapsulates it. Because a lot of leaders, and you don't want to micromanage, but they get micromanaging confused with auditing. And what auditing is when you are working with a team member or a part of a team or a group, it doesn't have to just be one-on-one, it can be with a group, and you ask for details. So you might say, maybe you've delegated something to them. Maybe they're working on an important customer, and you have a couple minutes with this teammate, somebody that reports to you, and you ask them how it's going. And of course they say, oh, it's going great. Yeah, it's going fine. You say, okay, what is the last conversation you had with them? Where is this at in the process? What did the CFO tell you in your last conversation with her? So you want to really dig down to the very, very smallest building block, or whatever you might call it, detail of the project, because that's going to give you more real information. Just asking how it goes normally doesn't really help anything. And so you need to always have your ears open for this. So you want to know how often you should do this. That's what the question was. You should do this all the time. Almost, I don't want to say every time you meet with somebody, but you want to do this where you are, anytime you have a meeting with anybody, anytime you are working on a project meeting, etc., always have your ears open, because remember, the subject and everybody else from a high level, you know what the different departments are, you know what the goals are, etc. I'm getting a lot into auditing. I know I just covered it in the last podcast. And also, you're there to coach people, and you can't coach people unless you have specifics. So you always want to keep your ears open for where you can find people not doing things optimally. Maybe they're doing something they don't need to do anymore. Maybe they're doing it incorrectly. That's your job, is to find that stuff. I jotted down a couple great questions. It's hard to give you an extensive list of questions because it's really situation dependent. But the best thing to do is to say, walk me through step by step where you're at on this. Where did you start? What was the first thing you did? How did that go? How long did that take you? And how long did it take you is a great question, because if I'm thinking it should only take half an hour and it took 6 hours over 3 days, I'm like, well, why did it take you so long? Maybe they don't know the right way to go about it. Maybe you have some experience you need to coach them on, or maybe they ran into an issue that you should know about so that you can help them, or might have to clear some obstacles for them or whatever. So walk me through step by step, or exactly where is it right now? What's the last thing that you did, specifically that you did, and what's the one thing you're waiting for? Because again, we're looking for specifics. Show me where you are at on the project. Pull up the spreadsheet, the project plan, the last email, etc. It's great if you're tracking these somehow, or there's an email train when if you have a shared screen available, have them pull it up, look at them, ask them some questions about it. That's what it is. Now, occasionally, if you're new to doing this, sometimes the person you're auditing might get defensive. And if they get defensive, here's how I would handle that. If I had a newer team and I asked them to pull up the spreadsheet and they're like, well, what, don't you trust me? I'm like, look, I trust you, but here's the thing. I'm responsible for this getting done. I know it's assigned to you, but I'm responsible. It's my butt that's going to get chewed out by my boss. So yes, I trust you, but do you know it all? Are you perfect? Have you done this perfectly every single time in your life? No, you haven't. So maybe there's a way that I can help you do it better. Maybe what I do is I need a status meeting. So if my boss asks me where it is, or one of the other department heads asks me where it is, I need to give them a status report. And I need to know what's happening. And I need to know if there's any issues. I need to know who you're dealing with. That is my job, is to do that at a higher level. I would potentially ask them, so how long have you been doing this? And if they say not a short time, to say, okay, well, maybe I have some experience that would help you do it more effectively. Do you want to be more effective? Yes or no? And if they say, oh, I've been doing it a long time, then I would say, well, maybe you're stuck into doing things. Maybe you need a fresh eyes on it. So let's look at it together. And frankly, it's quite arrogant if they're holding things, and maybe it's a bit of a cultural issue or a personality issue if they get defensive about it. And you could also ask them, do I micromanage you a lot? And then have a conversation about what micromanaging really is. And the last thing you could potentially ask them is, okay, I see you're a bit defensive about this. What is your real concern here? What is your real fear? That is a very, very powerful question to put forward to them. We talked in a recent podcast, I think you would have heard it by now, about range and depth. This is a depth question. What is your real concern or fear here? And asking that question is going to get them is going to open up potentially a really honest conversation with them. Because oftentimes when we see things, and this goes back to the ARC process awareness, we are not handling the real core issue. And so really getting to that real core issue, if somebody's defensive about you auditing them, then there's a deeper issue here, and that's really your job. All right, that was just the first question, everybody. We got a lot to go. All right, next question. I never have enough time and often end up doing things as others don't do them right. It's a very tiny organization. Some people I work with really let go of control, coaching and motivate them. I coach and motivate them well. I love seeing them fly, doing things better. Others, I fall into a reworking and rewriting what they do. I know it must feel bad for them, but I feel I absolutely must, and I suppose they are not in the right job. Worse, when they are my equal, how to handle that? Okay, great question here. Now, I'm going to start by being a bit tough on you because I'm the coach and that's my job, is sometimes to tell you not what you want to hear, but what you need to hear. And you alluded to that. And you are in a bit of over-responsibility. There's a bit of codependence going on here where people are getting dependent on you, and you need to address this. And you got to be careful because you're close to falling into a victim mindset. You're right. You said that they're not in the right job. Yeah, it sounds like people aren't in the right job, or they need coaching to get them to do things right. And this can be harder in a very small organization because stuff needs to get done by a very small number of people. But if there are people there that are consistently not doing their jobs, then changes have to be made. that you have to let those people go. You have to get them training. You have to get them coaching. So you need to do some coaching yourself. You need to get an external coach in there to help them, somebody like me or somebody else. You need to work on your hiring. If you're having an issue with them, there potentially is a problem onboarding. And then you have to have a serious conversation with the other managers and or the owner if you're covering for other departments. So your job, dear leader, is to set boundaries and stick up for yourself in this position. A great question, and I think a lot of us deal with this. And we want to get a result so bad that we do everything, and then we wonder why we're overworked. Well, that you're not being strategic, you're being tactical, and this is a big doer to leader shift. Next question. In the context of self-acceptance, what's an effective way to challenge the internal narrative of I failed? This is a great question, and this can be answered in a couple different ways. And I was jotting down some notes before this, so I have a little process here for you. And I wish I was a little bit. I listened to another podcast of somebody else, I think a McKinsey podcast or HBR podcast, and the person had an acronym. I'm like, I got to do more acronyms. I failed because if I had an acronym, this would be easier to remember. So I'll work on the acronym. Or if you're listening to this, drop me an acronym. That would be really helpful. Okay, so if you failed and you want to move into self-acceptance, how do you do that? And there's a bunch of different ways to do this. Here's what came to me this morning. First of all, tell yourself, yeah, you did. So what? Because I think what people talk about, I never fail, I just learn. That might work for some people, but you know what? I'm really competitive. I hold myself to a high standard. I get that to a point, but also that's really never truly landed for me because I'm so focused on achievement. So if you can just reframe everything into, I never fail, I just learn, good for you. I can't do that. So for the people that, and again, we're in self-acceptance. Sometimes you set out to do things, you don't do it, you did fail. Well, you know what? First thing is, as a leader especially, it is your job at times to fail. Because if you don't fail, sometimes you're not taking enough risks. As leaders, we need to take so many chances. We need to make so many decisions without all the information. Sometimes it's not going to go exactly how we wanted it or how we wanted it at all. That's your job, is to manage this risk and deal with the failures and then come in and rectify it. So your job is to fail sometimes as a leader. I hate to tell you that. Second thing is, take out a pen and paper, and these are a couple great questions to ask yourself. First of all, what was your fault and what was external? Sometimes we fail because we screwed something up. Oh, we didn't give the person the proper instructions. We could have done this different, done this different. So write down a couple things, what might have been your fault. Sometimes you don't do anything wrong and you still fail. So be compassionate. Don't be overly hard on yourself. And then what was external to you and what was external to the company? Maybe you gave a task to somebody else. What they did is they're capable of it, but they screwed it up. Maybe they didn't prioritize it. So your fault might have been a little bit, you didn't check in on them and audit them, but also they dropped the ball. And so maybe what was your fault was trusting them too much or not checking in on them. And we need to be honest about where they messed up as well. So write down what was your fault, what was external to you, and what was external to the company. You might have released a new product and then all of a sudden tariffs came in, right? That was external. You might have not done anything wrong. And you might have done some things wrong. Then we want to talk about what did you learn? And I want you to write this down because again, if I just like, what did you learn, Michael? I would just blurt something out and then go on to the next thing. So what really, truly did you learn? And write it down. And then write down, how will this change you for the better? How are you a better leader now that you went through this process? Because that's really going to make sure the lesson sticks with you. And the last thing that you want to do, dear leader, is to commit that this is not going to define you, that you're not even going to get down about it, that it's going to make you stronger. And part of your job is to take failures in stride and to remember that that's part of the job. That's what you do, and to keep your resilience and your energy up no matter what. If it's a massive failure, sometimes it's good to take a day or two to quote unquote grieve, but give yourself that day or two and then get back and make sure your energy's up, your confidence up, and that you realize this is part of the job. Next question. How can someone effectively deal with inferiority complex? My childhood experience wasn't the best, and it affected me more than I realized. Okay, the number one thing, and this is a great one because you're worried about self-limiting beliefs and childhood experience. Honestly, I can't answer this because there's nothing I'm going to tell you in 5 minutes that's going to help you overcome that. What I do have is, if you're listening to this in quote unquote real time at the beginning of January 2026, I'm going to be coming out with a mindset accelerator where we dig into this and some other self-limiting beliefs and all this other good stuff that you'll see more on in the end of January. So that's what the mindset accelerator is for. Though if you are also looking at your childhood experience that wasn't the best, that's also I'll give you a quick thing to do with this. There's a lot of work to do on this. Here's a quick thing. Realize the benefits of a difficult childhood. Because do you know who has really, really great resilience and grit? The people that had to deal with a lot of crap in their life. You know who doesn't have a lot of resilience and grit? People that had a storybook childhood and never got tested or never got done anything else. Of course, that's not to minimize what you went through, but the fact is, people that have went through a lot of hardships develop things that people that didn't do, and we forget that. Next question is, how do you find time to lead if there is much to do? Yeah, well, I have a great course called 5 Days to Freedom, which clears up to 40% of your time. That's a great product to invest in. I feel like a salesperson here, but I have these because they help leaders. Leadership is often about spending a little more time up front so that you have to deal with less crap later on, to use the technical term. And so this is really what you need to do. And also, we get stuck in our blind spots. So one really easy thing to do is just look at all your meetings and look at your to-do lists. Do this first thing in the morning or something, and just see if you can just delete a bunch of stuff off of there. Renegotiating them or take them off of there. That's a good, really quick, easy way to do that. And there's a much more detailed system, again, in 5 Days to Freedom. I should do a flash sale about that one of these days. Next question, how to lead volunteers in community-focused environments, churches specifically. When you are in a nonprofit or in a community-focused environment, a church, a spiritual center, etc., here's 2 great things for you to do. One is focus on the mission and the purpose. You have a built-in mission and a built-in purpose. And people often join because they're on board. Well, they almost always join because they're on board with that. But sometimes that can get lost in the day-to-day duties. Oh, I got to do this. I don't want to take the trash out. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. Your job as the leader is to remind people, hey, we're here to serve God. We're here to serve the homeless. We're here to do this. And from the very highest, and also to relate what they're doing to that. And so you always want to remind people, you should be very repetitive, focus on the mission and the purpose, and keep giving them reminders of what they're doing is in line with that purpose. And then also on like the next level is to explain what their role and duty is and how that affects both other people that are trying to do this and the overall mission and the purpose. Because if people are mission driven, they need to know what they're doing that relates to this. Next question, what's the best way of working with your own manager to transform their leadership mindset instead of just managing you and their team? Well, when you want to influence somebody else, especially the person that you report to, 3 things. Understand what's important to them. If there's somebody else in the organization, especially that you report to, understand like how they are compensated, what their KPIs are, what's important to them. That's the number one thing. And then tie what you want and other things to that. 2 is get to understand them and their personality. Everybody has a different personality, and if you want to get more into this, look at the growth leadership styles in the book, Leadership Mindset 2.0. It goes into these more deeply, so you know how to influence their personality. 3rd is ask questions. Don't tell them. Questions are just such a great way. Also, when I say ask questions, you want to ask questions and maybe offer them things. Hey, I have a way for us to get more effectiveness out of our team. Do you want me to share that? Hey, I know that we have to get so-and-so project out on time. I have a couple ideas. Do you want me to run them by you? And remember, when you bring something up to somebody, maybe they say yes or no right away, but also maybe you're planting a seed for them. So don't get caught up that you need to get to a resolution right away. Next question. I would love to know what things I'm missing, not seeing, and can learn to achieve my goals. So you are asking about what is your blind spots. Again, the Mindset Accelerator would be great for this because blind spots are tough in a very short period of time. But I'll give you 2 quick things that can potentially help you see what you're not seeing, your blind spots. One is, what problem keeps recurring in your life or as a leader or whatever that is? That is your blind spot. So, for example, if you do a good job, but it seems like you're never really respected like a peer on the highest levels, like you do a good job, people like you, but they don't see you as a strategic player, that's a blind spot. And if it happens more than once or for an extended period of time, that's a blind spot. If you do well, but you're always experiencing self-doubt, that's a blind spot. You need to do some work around that. And then you can also, what do you struggle with that others don't? Maybe other people connect with your CEO, but you don't connect with your CEO that well. And you haven't often connected with people above you. That's your blind spot. That's what you're not seeing. That can be learned. Often there's some unlearning before that can be learned. Lots of good questions here. All right. As a longtime technical expert transitioning into leadership, I found that the biggest hurdle isn't the technology, but the human interface. You got that right. What is one specific habit that I should unlearn from my years as a technical individual contributor to contribute to be a more effective growth leader in the nonprofit space? Well, I talked a little bit about nonprofit just a minute or 2 ago, but here's the 2 things that came to me. One is to let go of control. If you're a technical expert, you are used to controlling everything, analyzing everything. You have to break those habits to a point. Not everything's going to be in control. You can't analyze everything. You're going to have to make decisions without all the info. Second is to invest in relationships. You said you're having a problem with the human interface. What a technical term there too. I laughed on that one. So you need to invest in relationships. So the people that you need to interact with, are you having coffee with them? Are you having lunch with them? Do you know if they're married, if they have kids, what their hobbies are? Do you know what drives them? That's what you need to do. You need to invest in relationships. You need to map out their relationships, etc. Next question. I'm out of town several days per week and often meetings when at the office. How can I feel accessible and supportive to my team even when I'm away? How can I maintain the right connections, audit with my team leaders? Number 1, proceduralize it. So make sure that you are setting out times to connect with your team leaders. And what we can do sometimes is have these as a second priority. So that means you're always saying, hey, team leader, let's talk tomorrow at 4 p.m. And then tomorrow comes, okay, let's put it off a day. Schedule these and make sure you follow through with them. Don't keep rescheduling them because that tells them they're not important. Then when you're there, make the most of your time when you're with them. So this might be a bit of informal small talk and connection. And when you're not in small talk, make sure you're asking great questions and you're auditing them and you're coaching them and that they're getting value out of that time. Don't just have these as catch-ups and have it like be, you talked for half an hour, but I'm not even really sure what we talked about. You sort of know what's going on, but that's really not that beneficial to either of you. The third thing I wrote down is small things matter. So maybe something happens and just a little email to them. Hey, great job. I saw what you did there. Hey, I know you're working some extra hours. I really appreciate that. Those things matter to a lot of people. What I really like are voice notes, because voice notes, I can do a voice note quicker than typing. It shows some personality. And so whether you're on Slack or Teams or whatever, most of the time you can do a voice note or WhatsApp. Just drop a note. Hey, I was just thinking about you. I saw that you did. I really appreciate that. Hey, if you have any issues with this, just let me know. Just so you're in their field of view and they know that you see them. Next question, tips on how to make leadership change stick with the organization and culture. 2 things. If you want to make things stick, you need accountability and repetition. Maybe you learn something as a leadership team once in a month, and then every week after that, for the rest of the month, there is implementation of it, and there's accountability of it, and you repeat it. Next question, how to motivate salespeople to do it. By the way, I'm going over a lot, and if any of these, like, you want to, what I would suggest you do is just pause the podcast and give yourself a minute or two to reflect. How does this relate to me? Where do I need to implement this in the organization? Because look, they're really great questions. I'm giving you answers, and I can talk literally pretty much on any of these for 10 or 15 minutes, though it may spark something in you, so you can just pause it, and that's going to give you a reflection. Okay, the next time I talk to so-and-so, I can do this. The next time I can talk to so-and-so, I can do this. Next question, how to motivate salespeople to do everything required to meet goals. Yeah, if I had an easy key to this, then I'd be doing sales training. Look, if salespeople aren't motivated, probably they shouldn't be salespeople, to be honest with you. So, and I've been working with more and more sales leaders, not on sales processes, but on how to lead people. So I have three things. One thing is culture. You need a culture of performance. You need a culture of urgency. You need people who are going to be called out if they don't do, hit what they're supposed to be doing. And you need to hire better, honestly. Because to me, great salespeople are competitive, and they're competitive by nature. It's hard to turn on a competitiveness. It is possible, but you do that through accountability, transparency, and culture. And you do it by hiring people that are really, really, really motivated and competitive. Next question. I'm strong at execution and I feel capable in my role, but I'm stretched across too many priorities. What's the most common blind spots in new leaders like me that limits impact or creates unnecessary strain, and how do you usually see it resolved? Okay. I think a lot of us get stretched about too many priorities. So first thing you got to do is you got to understand what you're really being paid for, what really moves the needle, and make sure you're doing that first every day. And maybe don't do everything else. You need to know what really moves the needle and make sure you're doing that and get seen as somebody who does their strategic priorities. And maybe you don't do other things on your list and you just let them fall off. 2 is renegotiate. Go to your leaders and renegotiate with them and say, hey, I got to get this done, but I'm doing this and this and this. I need things off my plate. What can I take off my plate? And frame it like that, not like, can I get something off my plate? Say, hey, out of these 3 things, I need one of these off my plate. Here's my suggestion. What can you do? Maybe they'll say no. Who knows? Maybe they'll say no, but probably they'll say something. 3rd is make sure you're taking time off. Make sure you have time to think. And this is a paradox because you're super busy, but when you're super busy, you don't identify places and things that you need to do to give yourself more time. So you need to be taking half days off here and there, 1 day's off here and there, your vacation. You need to maybe take morning walks so that you can have some reflection time. Okay, last question. How to gain my team respect and support. How to gain your team respect and support. Here's what I'm going to say. Respect yourself first. Remember, the foundational truth of leadership is your leadership is a reflection of your relationship with yourself. Make sure you respect yourself first. Be clear in your communication. Set clear expectations and boundaries of yourself and other people and hold people accountable, all while being kind to yourself and to them. Similar to this, do you know you can hold somebody accountable even and have a difficult conversation even when you're kind, while being kind? You just be very factual. Don't make things personally. Wow, everybody. If you're in the Growth Leaders Collective, keep these questions coming. I'm here to answer your questions. I love doing this, as you might have noticed. Now, let's look up here. I'm going to find something up here because I want to give you one challenge to do. All right, here's my challenge. I talked about when you're leading volunteers, but this is for anybody. Make sure everybody in your team knows what their role and duty affects. Now, everybody in an organization has a role, has some duties, has things on their to-do list, but they can get so caught up into doing those specific things that they forget they're part of a chain. So if they're doing marketing, they may forget that the marketing they're doing brings leads in, which brings revenue in, which pays everybody's salary. If they're doing accounting, they have to realize that whatever they're doing in accounting leads to cash flow or leads to reports that people use to make decisions. And it's a really great thing and again, this is your job as a leader, is to make sure everybody knows what their role is and what their duty is and how that affects the company other departments, etc. So what I want you to do, dear leader, is find one person in the next day or two and just have a conversation with them. Ask them. And again, whenever you have questions like this, conversations like this, first start with a question. Say, hey, I was just thinking about you. I'm curious, you do accounts payable. Do you know how important of a job this is and what this affects? I'm just curious. What do you think your role in this company is? And let them talk. And maybe they have a really great answer. Maybe like, I don't know. I just put this number in here. And then just take a couple minutes. Say, okay, well, when you do this, this is what it affects. This is how it affects. This is how it affects these people over here. And it's probably going to be a very, very enlightening conversation. That is your challenge. Now, I want you to go and go to the Leadership Mindset 2.0 Facebook group if you're not in the GLC, or go to the GLC and I want to hear what you got out of this Q&A, or put it on a comment on the podcast. What's one thing that you got out of this podcast? And that does help me. I do enjoy reading the comments, though. If you will go and put it in the group or on the comments, it also puts it deeper into your psychology. So what that means is anytime your brain has to process thing and write it, you're going to remember it more. So it's a great technique for you to take something home. All right, everybody, it's been a real pleasure. GLC members, keep these questions coming so we can have another robust Q&A session. And I will see everybody later. And just remember, dear leader, you are massively competent. You're massively effective. And no matter what comes at you, you got this. You just heard me working through real leadership challenges live. But listening is only half the equation. If you want to be in the room for the next one, ask me your specific questions and get coaching or training on your unique situation, you need to be inside the Growth Leaders Collective yourself. Come grab a 14-day trial for just $1 at rmichaelanderson.com/GLC. And if you have any comments or questions about today's episode, just search for the Leadership Mindset 2.0 groups on LinkedIn and Facebook. I'll see you there. Hey, one more thing, dear leader. I'm hosting a free masterclass on Wednesday, January 21st. It's called How to Master Truly Confident, High-Impact Leadership in 2026. So if you want to join us, where you can really learn psychologically how to bring even more confidence into your life and how to truly be a more highly impactful and influential leader, this is for you. Just go to rmichaelanderson.com/class and sign up now. It's free, and you're going to get a lot of value out of investing that 1 hour in this class. Again, that's rmichaelanderson.com/class. I'll see you there.